Hey guys, I got another wonderful TG upgrade video for you guys. This is going to be a TG explained video. Another wonderful TechNetwit video. My brain is going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, but we're going to get this done because we got this wonderful set upgrade, bringing 4K to you guys. So I'm going to jump right into this. I'm going to explain the CPUs pretty quick. We get Intel, which is this guy. This is an Intel. This is a i7 9700. Not K's. K's will not work. And then we have our AMD 3700X. Both these upgrades are going to be being done in 690 and TG. Stay for more videos on that. But let me get right into it. So, with the AMD, I'm going to talk about Intel first, but they got both in the TGs. There's 8th, 9th Gen, and it is an LGA 1151. It can use an i3 all the way up to an i7, and of course I'll go back over it. The non-K SKUs are not usable. So with the TG, the Intel 8th and 9th Gen CPUs, motherboard is the Linux. Product number 2, Hilo Lima 14 Alpha Alpha, and the SSID is 84-3 Bravo. One thing to be aware of is you can only use 65 watt CPUs in the TG or any of the HP Pavilions. That's a 690, 590, TG, etc., etc. This video is about the TG, but I will be bringing up the other ones as I go because there's some similarities. Also, the Intel 10th Gen is supported by the TG01. It is the new LGA 1200. No K SKUs are workable with that. It is not backwards compatible to the 8th, 9th Gen. So just be aware of that. The 10th Gen only has 2 CPUs that work in it, guys. I'm sorry. It's the i5 10400 and the i7 10700. Of course, no K CPUs are usable. It's just like everything else. The Intel 10th Gen motherboard is the Baker. Its part number is 3 Umbrella Romeo 19 Alpha Alpha. This board is seen in the TG01-1185 Tango and some of the other models. I'm just talking about Intel right now. There's a different TG model for the AMD. We're not going to get into that, but it is pretty much the same thing. One thing to note, most of the newer TGs come with 16 gigabytes of RAM. The 10th Gen, the one I said above, that TG01-1185 Tango, comes with 16 gigs. You don't have to worry about doing the 16 gig upgrade. Once I get past the processors, I will kind of explain why I bring this up, because it's very important that all these have dual channel. Let's get into the AMD TGs. The AMD uses the AM4 socket. It is the Erica motherboard. The part number for that motherboard is 8 Romeo Sierra 82 Echo Alpha. This board supports the Ryzen 3, 5, and 7 from processors, the 3200 Golf, 3400 Golf, 3500, and 3700X like we have right here. That'll be one of the upgrade videos that I bring for you guys. And if you stick around for a while, you'll see that video. The nice thing about the AMD TG is it does support 3200 megahertz RAM with a BIOS upgrade, unlike the Intel brethren. To be honest, it only affects you by 3 or 5 frames per second having that 2666 megahertz RAM versus the 3000. Both the AMD and the Intel both support 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM. That is 2x 16 gigabit RAM, 288 pin DDR4. It will support 16 2x and 8 gigabit sticks both. The Intel is the same as the AMD, only the speed is the difference. Let's move on to RAM, guys. These guys right here, little RAM stickies. I kind of talked about it before. So let's get into that. All right, guys, if you do not understand any of this, just comment below. I will try to get to all of them as I am doing this to help you, the viewer, out. Just be aware, if you look at all my other comments, I usually get back to people, so you guys do matter. So with the Intel CPU, you only get 2666 megahertz DDR4. It will run 3000 megahertz and 3200. It'll downclock it. Now, one thing I want to make you aware is when it downclocks it, it's still better to get rid of that single stick and get these dual 2 sticks, and even at 2000. Let me explain it like this. If you got one garden hose that can do 1 gallon, that's your 2666 megahertz RAM, and you replace that out and you put 2 sticks in that can do 2000 megahertz each, that's like adding 2 3/4 inch, 3/4 of a gallon inch hoses. It's still more than that one as a whole. So just be aware, with putting in RAM, sometimes with the Intel upgrades, it might downclock it to 2400 or even 2000. This is fine because it is going to unlock the most potential and performance of your gaming rig, and that's what you want. This is going to be like one of the biggest upgrades you may do. If you only got one of these sticks in there, one of these guys, you're going to want to upgrade to 2, especially if you're streaming or if you're doing games like WoW or any games that are memory intensive like PUBG and Warzone. You're going to want dual channel RAM, at least 16 gigs. If you can afford it, get 32. So I think I made it clear to you guys that this PC wants dual channel RAM. It thrives off of it. So to get your best performance, that's what you want. All right, guys, brands of memory I like ADATA, OL, Corsair, Kingston, and Samsung. OL and ADATA are on the cheaper sides. Kingston, Corsair, Samsung are on the more expensive. Now, the AMD version of the TG needs a BIOS upgrade to work with the DDR3200 RAM. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but if you want it to work with that, unless it's brand new from the factory, you're going to have to do one of those upgrades. All right, guys, one of the best upgrades you can do besides the RAM is going to be upgrading to one of these big black Mamma Jamma spanking cool GPUs. This is a 2060 RTX Super. This guy is our sexy set piece. He is the one that we throw on all our computers and we test it. She's a beautiful bad Mamma Jamma. I love this graphics card. Pull that up front for you guys so you can see it. This is going to be the next biggest upgrade you guys can do. We're about to get into GPUs here, and let's talk some. So, I love the AMD GPUs, but at the time, with the current power supply that's in here, you are going to get the best bang for your buck out of NVIDIA GPUs. I just want to make that aware. This goes hand in glove with the 400 watt power supply if you do want to upgrade. Let me make it aware that you can only put in either a GTX 1050 or a 1650 because they don't require this external power plug right here, which I will get into later about that power supply. You don't need one of these bad Mamma Jammas, a 6 or an 8 pin. Now the 400 watt TG, the 400 watt HP Pavilion TG does come with a 6 and 8 pin adapter already on the power supply. Alright guys, one thing I want to make you aware of, if you notice how short this graphics card is, how it doesn't look like it's the normal guy with 3 fans. Just be aware that only 10-inch graphics cards will fit in her. Anything bigger and she's going to scream and run and say no go. So just be aware that this big black Mamma Jamma, this is all you're going to be able to fit inside of her. She will not take anything bigger than 10 inches. Now, I will pull out a tape measure and show you guys. So it's going to look like there's more than 10 inches here, but just be aware that a lot of graphics cards, when they go in like this. And the problem is they put power, like actual power things in the back here. If you put a power plug in here, think about this as the power plug, you now have wasted a 1/2 inch. So just be aware that that's not going to work for you. So guys, I'll pull out a tape measure here and stick this in our case really quick. And we do come to 11.5, but if we look, our cage stops at about 10, and then we got 10.5. So really, I wouldn't try to go over 10 inches with a GPU in the TG. It's just not a good idea. You're not gonna, it's gonna be a nightmare to try to get in. You can do 10 and maybe 1/8, but that is it. If you get where the power plugs are on the side, you're good to go. So guys, this type of case is called an SFF. It's small form factor case. And yeah, I'm going to go over some GPUs and what you can do if you have this 400 watt bad Mamma Jamma power supply. If you do want to upgrade the TG with the 400 watt because you don't have one, I ordered this power supply from HP. This is not a power supply. This is not a power supply that came with one of the computers. So when I did my 590 upgrade, that only had a 200 watt power supply in. I had to put this guy in there. So if you guys want to see the label, there you go. So just FYI, not all TGs are equal. There are tons of models, AMD, Intel, lower tier models, higher tier models. One thing I do want to mention, guys, is some people have gotten the RTX 2070 to work on the channel. I would have advised against this as it is over the TDP of the 400 watt PSU, which could be problematic down the road, or a dead PSU GPU. So it's something you probably do not want for your PC. Now guys, they do sell a 500 watt PSU. I'm still waiting on mine to be shipped from HP. I also ordered one from Germany and it is currently in customs. I'm trying to get it done for you guys. Now this 500 watt PSU is said to work in the TG690 and 590, But of course, waiting on mine, I can't test it 100% to show you guys if it actually works, if I could prove it before I say it's actually true. One thing about that 500 watt, if I do get the 500 watt to work, I can say without a doubt you can put an RTX 3070 in here. But of course, I have to wait. So we'll see what comes along, and hopefully we get there. I also have a 500 watt power supply that I'm trying to get put in that is not HP. That is a totally different brand. I'm trying to convert it. It's a project I'm working on. If this comes to fruition, there'll be a video. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If you guys want to bother me about it, I can't really give too many details out right now because it's a project and I'm trying to make it work. The 10-inch rule about the GPUs. Some brands I like for GPUs, this is with the HPs or not, is Asus, MSI, Zotac, EVGA, and MSI. I know 100% that Asus, MSI, and EVGA make a 2060 and 2060 Super that will fit inside the TG690 and 590. So just, that's an FYI, guys. I'm going to go over your options if you have a 400 watt PSU, starting from the worst to the best video card that you can actually put inside this PC. This is the GTX1060, the GTX1050 Ti, the GTX1660, an RX 5700 XT, a 1660 Ti, an RTX 2060 6GB, and RTX 2060 Super 8GB, in that order from worst to best. So I just did a set upgrade. As you guys can probably see, we're in 4K now. I just wanted to throw that out there. If you like it, throw a thumbs up. You dislike it, throw a thumbs down. Tell me what you think. All right, guys, that is pretty much it for the GPUs. You can look at the Radeon cards like the 5600 XT. That's if you have the 400 watt. They are not bad cards. I just think you get better FPS out of NVIDIA cards with the HP Pavilion right now. So let's talk hard drives and SSDs. These guys. This is a hard drive. This is an SSD. This is a little spinny disk. This is your little fast SSD. And then, of course, we have the NVMe which right here. I'm going to start juggling. No, I'm not, because I got some expensive stuff in my hands. Them spinny things we all love and hate. So you have three choices here. I just showed them to you. This is the slowest. This is the next fastest. And this is going to be the very fastest. So these are your three guys that you have to choose from. Really, you should try to go with one of these, but if you're being budget conscious, it's going to be a hard drive. There's nothing bad about playing video games on a hard drive. It will do it. Just your load times will be a little bit slower. I said them in the order slowest to fastest, so when I introduced them, that's how it went. So if you're wondering what drive to get is the fastest, you want the NVMe. Be aware there's only one NVMe socket in here. You need a USB-C to NVMe adapter if you want to do anything, clone anything or anything like that. I'll get into that more here in a second. So if you want to do a larger NVMe, like I said, you're going to have to clone it. And you'll need that adapter. So cloning the C drive outside of the PC is a little bit different. Be aware that not all adapters can do this. So just make sure when you're searching on Amazon, or I'll have one link down below that can do it. Another thing be aware of is M.2s come in different sizes, shapes, and keys. This is an M key 2280, and this is the only one that will work in this HP Pavilion TG690 and 590. If you need to clone your C drive to be able to replace it with a larger one, I would say use Macarium Reflect. I will have a link for the software down below. It's a free software. It works awesome. I've used it for all different versions of Windows, PC, laptops, and servers. So with M.2, your USB-C adapter to clone your C drive to an NVMe, I will make a video on this later down the road to show you guys how to do this. I will do a step-by-step on how to clone the C drive and how to install all these other drives and hardware. So there's going to be more videos to come. So the SSD is going to be the pretty easy upgrade if you're looking at stuff, or the hard disk if you have an M.2 already. One thing I want to make you aware of is this PC can only do 3 drives. That's 3. So it can do all 3 of these, or it can do 2 SSDs and an NVMe. That's all that will fit in there. Alright guys, another thing I want you guys to be aware of. The screws for these two bad mamma jammas are different. The screws for this guy are going to be the 6x32 UNCs, and the screws for these guys are going to be M3 type X by 4 millimeters. So just be aware that the screws are not compatible for these guys. Most HPs do not come with extra screws for drives. I will have a link for a kit down below that you guys can order. You can order the screws separately in 4-packs for your drives. I would say just get the kit. That way if you lose any other screw in your PC, you're not up crack creek and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? And this way you can pull your little kit out. They're cheap. They're easy. It's always something you should have around if you own a PC. And you're going to be the one maintaining it. This is a 3.5-inch drive. And just be aware that only one of these will go in there. I know I said that. 2.5 or SSDs will fit in the HP. All right, guys, HP does have some screws listed for the M.2 if you ever lose it or it gets out of there. That's part number 601010-01. That's an M2X3L, or at least that's what HP calls it. All the research I've done, they are M2.0, 2.5 millimeter flathead, but there are different sizes here. But with the HP, that's going to be their size. All right, guys, so just be aware that you can add an extra SSD or hard drive without cloning anything. If you have the space in your TG, then you will need to format it via disk management in Windows, or if it pops up, you can right click and do format. I will have another video on this later. This will be besides the other hard drive installs. These are going to be separate videos, so you can just pick what you want and choose to watch what you need. If it does not show up in Windows, you're going to have to go down in the Windows start bar, type in disk management, click on the thing that shows up, and you're pretty much good from there. There's two types of disks that you can choose, GPT and MBT, Master Boot Partition, and Grand Boot, or Technit with frickin' speak. I'm just going to call it GPT and MBT. Them are the two. MBT is what you boot off of. GPT is what you use as a secondary disk. All these disks are going to be formatted as NTFS, and everything else is default, like sector size and stuff, leave default. Trust me, you want to leave it default. It is a little bit different if you're going to use the disk as a boot disk. You're going to set it as an MBT, and I will probably have another video, like I said, and we will go over that after this upgrade explain video is done. This is the same for all disks unless you plan to boot off of it. Like I said, that's when you're going to select the master boot partition. So if you do decide to do cloning, you are going to have two drives in there. You might be cloning your SSD and have an SSD in there ready. Be aware there is two SATAs available in there that are free from stock on most TGs. Not all of them, but most of them. So you can come in here and grab the power and just leave it outside the case, do your cloning, pop your other one out, install your new one, and you're good to go. Same thing with the hard drive. If you want to do a bigger hard drive, you can clone that as well. One thing to be aware of is if you do take out a drive and you're using that as your C drive, you can keep that around as a backup. I will explain more in the video, but you have a solid backup that can copy all your files to what version they were. So if you install all your drivers in a couple games, you'll have a backup of that, and it's kind of nice. In the TG01, you can install a total of 3 drives all in one. One can be a hard disk, one can be an SSD, one can be an NVMe M.2 M key. Or you can do an M.2 and 2 SSDs. The hard drive has to be a 3.5, the SSDs will be 2.5s. They do make 2.5-inch hard disks, I would say stay away from them. The NVMe has to be an M.2 M key 2280. This will not take anything else. They do make all different types and sizes of NVMe's, just FYI. Brands I trust that I like for hard drives, just these guys right here, are Western Digital and Seagate. Brands I trust for SSDs is Samsung, Kingston, sorry, I was making sure the label was up right, Crucial, ADATA, Team Group. Team Group is okay, they're not the best, but they're usually the cheapest. NVMe's, I like Samsung, Corsair, Crucial, ADATA. Pretty much they're the highest priced is kind of the order I went. Some of them will flip-flop a little bit, but that's pretty much it. So that is pretty much the upgrade in a nutshell, other than the PSU, which is an upgradable to the 400 watt, like I said, if you don't have it already. I do think the 500 watt version will work, but until I get it, I can't test it for you, so I cannot say 100%. That is the 500 watt that will work. The 400 watt PSU part number is Lima 04618-800. And the 500 watt PSU is Lima 0 5757-800. One last thing, you can take all the parts out of the HP case and put them in a new case. But you will need a new case, new motherboard, and new PSU. This sounds like a lot, but really is not. A new MSI Pro VHD B365 motherboard, this is Intel, this is for the Intel TG dudes that I'm talking about, is about 78 buckaroos. The AMD version is about 78 buckaroos too. It's an Asus Prime B450M-A, and you get a case like the NZT510 for 61 bucks, and then all you need is a PSU. The Thermaltake Smart 600 watt PSU is only about 55 buckaroos. That's only 190 to 200 bucks in all. So a real nice thing about this upgrade is you can pretty much upgrade to any GPU you want at that point. You don't have to get that 600 watt, you can get an 800 watt, and then if you want a 3090, you can. You take your processor out, take your memory out, and stuff like that. Take your M.2 and drives. But beware that you will need a power supply that can handle a larger GPU, like I said, if you go that route. So you could buy a nicer PSU for down the road to get a better GPU and use your lesser GPU at the time. It gives you the option to not have to buy new parts every time you upgrade. I usually buy a PSU in case that lasts me for up to 2 to 3 builds to save money. I hope you guys and gals liked the video. Please sub and like. Any questions and comments are welcome. I do not believe any question is stupid. This was Tech Nitwit, and have a great day. Hey guys, it's Tech Nitwit here. Make sure you guys subscribe and like and hit that bell. Thanks.